The CT5 replaced the CTS. There's also a CT5 V6, which is not the CTS V Sport replacement. That's actually the CT5V, which is not the replacement to the CTS V, because that would actually make sense. Rather, the CT5V Blackwing will be the CTS V replacement, but that's not out yet. We can, however, expect to see that later in 2021. If you are still around after the head-spinning intro, then welcome to Fox Automotive, where today we will be taking a look at the all-new lineup for 2020 from Cadillac to figure out what the heck is going on with their naming scheme for the CT5. We will cover everything you need to know about the CT5 and the differences between the trims so that you will soon be one of the few people in the world that actually knows what these vehicles are. So, first of all, what is the CT5? Well, thankfully, this is pretty straightforward. The CT5 is the new for 2020 replacement to the CTS. Similarly, Cadillac also replaced the ATS with the CT4, which shows a clear commitment to redefining and refocusing their sedan lineup. This move comes after years of lackluster sales from their sedan lineup. Despite their best efforts in making some pretty compelling vehicles, only 18% of Cadillac's sales from 2019 model years were made up by these sedans. It seems that Cadillac, like many other American brands, is having a hard time selling anything but SUVs, and even crossovers to the American consumer. Ford has handled this by cutting out all sedans from their lineup, which some have argued is a rather short-sighted and high-risk move. Cadillac, however, seems determined to recreate their sedan lineup in hopes of better competing with mainly the German rivals that are still selling sedans. With that goal in mind, Cadillac significantly revised the CTS and branded it the CT5. The CT5 is similar to the BMW 3 Series in price, however the rear seat legroom is closer to that of a 5 Series. To accomplish this, the wheelbase is a full 1.4 inches longer than the previous CTS and is built upon the Alpha platform. Despite having a longer wheelbase, overall length is actually shorter compared to the previous CTS due to shortened overhangs in both the front and back. Weight would be another concern with a growing wheelbase, but you'll be relieved to hear that it's only 40 to 50 pounds heavier than a similarly equipped 3 Series from the BMW camp, which is lighter than the previous CTS. Seeing these numbers, one thing is clear: Cadillac is still rolling with a strategy of slotting in between the competition. They offer more size than the 3 Series or an Audi A4, but they have engines and prices that would be more competitive with those same offerings in an attempt to lure customers away from these brands. It sounds like a pretty solid plan, but with disappointing sales numbers over the last several years, maybe Cadillac should be rethinking their approach. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Since I already alluded to the engine offerings, let's start by taking a look at those, because that is one area that I think is pretty dang messy within this lineup, especially with the naming. The CT5 will be available as a CT5 350T, 550T, V, and for 2021, V Blackwing. Obviously, this new naming scheme boasts big flashy numbers like 350, 550, and even a V designation, which is, or should I say used to be, nearly as significant as an M car or an AMG or an RS. But in reality, essentially each and every one of these is flat out a lie and just an attempt to trick customers into purchasing these vehicles. What engine do you think the 350T receives, and how much power would you expect it to make? I have to believe most people would assume that 350T badge implies 350 horsepower and the T would represent having a turbocharger. Both of those assumptions would indicate that the 350T trim would have something like a turbocharged 6-cylinder engine, right? But it doesn't. It has a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that only makes 237 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque. So where the hell does 350 come from? Well, in Cadillac's attempt to justify this misleading name, they say the name is derived from the peak torque output of this engine measured in Newton meters. A measurement that most Americans probably aren't familiar with at all. Even I, a huge car enthusiast, have a hard time relating or converting Newton meters into a measurement like pound-feet, which is actually meaningful to us, at least here in the United States. I don't know about you guys, but I think this is pretty sad on the part of Cadillac to use this as an excuse to throw big numbers on their trunk. Rather than doing this, I would rather just have them come up with a new naming scheme if they don't want to say 2.0T on the back of their trunk. But admittedly, from strictly a marketing standpoint and nothing else, it does make sense because a 350T sounds bigger and better than a 330i, doesn't it? Not only is the naming disappointing, but so is the base engine offering. The CT5 is 31 horsepower and 37 pound-feet of torque, down from the old CTS. That's 50 newton meters, since that's how Cadillac likes to measure it now. So unfortunately, the new CT5 is nearly a full second slower to 60 miles per hour, despite actually being lighter. If you really need to know the 0-60 time, it's an overwhelmingly unimpressive 6.6 seconds. Ouch. So if you want a faster CT5, the 550T might be for you then, right? 550 newton meters of torque sounds like a lot, right? And actually, it is pretty good. The 550T trim receives the new twin-turbocharged V6 engine that cranks out a respectable 335 horsepower and a very significant 405 pound-feet of torque that kicks in just at 2400 RPM, meaning the engine should be very responsive and have very good passing power. Thanks to the aluminum block and heads, this engine doesn't increase weight too much, meaning this variant of the CT5 hits 60 miles per hour in just over 5 seconds. Which is a very respectable figure. All this for just an extra $3,500 on the base price, so please don't buy a 350T. If the 550T is still out of your price range, then just look somewhere else, because the 350T really doesn't make sense in this vehicle. In fact, the 550T is really the sweet spot of this lineup, with plenty of power to be comfortable and fun without having to pay a premium for the V badging, which essentially means nothing now apparently. How can I be sitting here telling you that it's worthless now when the CTS-V was such an epic vehicle? Well, frankly because it is. The CT5 is the most disappointing cash grab I've seen in a long time. We all know the CTS-V was a beast of a machine that commanded a premium price tag, but it earned it. The CT5V is not a beast at all. It's barely even sporty power per segment. What it is a disgrace to the old V name. But, rant over. So let's look at the new CT5V. It features a slightly tuned up version of the 3-liter twin-turbo V6 that's found in the 550T. This variant produces 360 horsepower, only 25 more than the 550T, and has actually the same output of torque at 405 pound-feet. This small bump in power is good to push the 0-60 time down a bit to 4.8 seconds. It can also finish a quarter mile in 13.3 seconds at 107 miles per hour. Thankfully, the V only costs $2,000 more than the 550T, starting at $48,698. However, that still doesn't make it right because the name is so wrong. Cadillac is clearly playing off the V name to move more units of a car that is not at all what the V used to signal for Cadillac. The only redeeming factor here in my eyes is that Cadillac is not completely abandoning the old CTS-V. Instead, it is bringing it back in spirit as a 2021 model year as the CT5V Blackwing. Despite having a very similar name, the Blackwing shares nothing with the V we just talked about. The Blackwing will have a glorious 6.2-liter supercharged V8 with a screaming 650-ish horsepower, and get this, an option for a 6-speed manual transmission. It turns out Cadillac hasn't completely turned its back on the enthusiasts out there, it's just trying to trick the average consumer. But as the release of this vehicle gets closer, I'm sure we'll take a look at it in more detail, but for now, let's keep digging into the CT5s that are available now. As I mentioned earlier, Cadillac worked hard to make the CT5 more comfortable than the previous CTS. Not only is the interior larger, but the chassis also rides softer, has duller responses to inputs, and offers little in terms of communication of road conditions back to the driver. While personally I'm saying these things with a negative tone, I have to also admit that it does make sense for Cadillac to do this, as most traditional Cadillac buyers would prefer the more luxurious ride over the more sporty ride. This is where I do wish the CT5V variant was a bit more hardcore, however, like a baby Blackwing for example, but it's really not that much different from the 550T besides more aggressive visual appearance. it doesn't translate to the mechanics of the vehicle very much. Related to driving characteristic is performance, so I will start by saying it again. Please don't buy the 350T, the Audi A4, Genesis G70, BMW 330i, and even the Alfa Romeo Giulia all beat it in a straight line, and they are all also more fun to drive. The 550T holds its own much better against all these same offerings, and the V even compares reasonably well to the S4 or M340i. And to wrap things up on a high note for this category, the 10-speed automatic, which is the only transmission offering, is actually quite nice by being very responsive and smooth. Moving on to the interior, let's wrap up our breakdown here. The CT5 feels improved over the CTS, but not especially premium or modern. The infotainment is still controlled by a touchscreen, which is a good thing, and the new system is so much better than the old quirky Q system of previous generation Cadillacs. The whole interior, not just the infotainment, actually feels more user-friendly and intuitive. Everything just seems to be placed where you'd expect it, and really that's something you can't take for granted, even in this price range. The $1,500 two-tone interior option helps it feel a bit more premium, but it really still isn't a standout compared to its competition. The CT5V can be optioned out with carbon fiber trim and comes with a more bolstered seating offering, which enhances the sporty feeling, but is still not too aggressive, which could be a good thing. So to sum it up, the interior is nice, but I don't think it lives up to the Cadillac name, if that makes sense. It just seems to be lacking something special to really bring it up to that level. So after that massive information dump, let's take a minute to talk about pricing before you form any final opinions on the CT5. The base 350T starts at $42,690, which would be fine if it had more power in my opinion. The exterior looks and Cadillac name alone help justify this price point, but the engine and interior hold me back from being able to truly recommend it to anyone. The 550T is something that I can recommend, however, as long as that person is happier with this interior versus some of the competition. That trim starts at $46,540, and that relatively minor increase in price is absolutely worth it for the better engine. And then finally, the CT5V, which of course isn't a real V, starts at $48,690 and can quickly run north of $60,000 with basic packages being added in. This one is a recommendation from me only if the styling, the exterior styling of the V is important to you, because it does look pretty aggressive and it looks really good. You as a buyer just have to know that you are not getting anything like what the old CTS-V used to be, which is fine, it's just confusing. And honestly, I think that's the best way to sum up the entire lineup. It's fine, just confusing. So let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. Alright, thanks for checking out this week's deep dive episode, guys. If you enjoyed it and found it informative, please leave a like and get subscribed to our channel. We post deep dive episodes like this every Thursday and quick look episodes every Tuesday. But for now, enjoy your weekend. I hope to see you all again on Tuesday.